All right, so let's get it started with question number one. How does a free market eliminate shortage by allowing prices to rise? A great example of this are a lot of the shortages of items during a pandemic, which has caused hand sanitizer, paper towels, N95 masks, wet wipes. All of those prices have significantly risen during the time of the pandemic. With price ceilings in place, the quantity demanded is higher than the quantity supplied, and because of the scarcity of these goods, people are left waiting in long lines for items that they will potentially never even get. And a great example of this was the food shortage in Venezuela when a price ceiling was put on place on foods and other basic goods, leaving grocery stores empty as this and with crazy long lines for people trying to get food but never actually ending up getting food. With question number three, as you can see, when you plot the graph, the equilibrium price is $3 and the equilibrium quantity is 3,500. If a government price ceiling was put in place at $2 a gallon for milk, then there would be a shortage of 2,100 gallons of milk, and only 2,000 gallons would be sold at that price point.
So question four dealt with if the government decides to make health insurance affordable by requiring all health insurance companies to cut their prices by 30%. So it asked what would the effects be on the local people who are covered by health insurance. And the number of people covered by health insurance. So this is a classic price ceiling example where producers are not allowed to move above a fixed price. So this has a double-edged sword effect because although this allows a lot more people to be able to afford health insurance, the demand is so great because people can afford it that there's effectively a shortage of health insurance. So even though it would be cheap, it would be initially like people would be getting into lines and there would be almost no way to buy it because it would just be going off the rack faster than it could be produced, faster than it could be supplied and stuff. So not only would there be shortages and probably less people would get access to healthcare, but also the healthcare that people would be able to access would have subpar quality. So thus you would see a lot of health insurance coverages only covering bare minimum medical procedures and bare minimum.
So for question 5A, we have to determine long run versus short run. This is dealing with would the consumer surplus be larger in the long run or in the short run? And this is for a controlled rent scenario. So first we have to ask ourselves, what is consumer surplus? And consumer surplus is the difference between the price that consumers are willing to pay, so we can look on the demand curve and find that, versus the price that sellers are selling the actual item for. So this is always below equilibrium. So as we can see here, graphically, we can just analyze this as this area between this controlled rent in the long run and the price demanded is going to be less than the controlled rent price and the price demanded in the short run. So as you can see, there's going to be a larger area, short run, long run. So thus, a short run will help consumer surplus more than a long run.
Question 5B, of course, my answer was rent controls hurt home builders more in the long run. So let me explain. So in a long run versus short run, we again have to look at the elasticity of the supply graph. So as you can see, the short run supply is not elastic at all, really. It's very, very vertical. Whereas in the long run, it is elastic. It has a smaller slope. So we can see that that essentially it is more profitable in the short run for home builders to keep on building houses and to keep on constructing apartments. Why is this? Because the question of elasticity of products versus elasticity of producers. So essentially, these producers, these home builders, and these construction workers, they can walk away from their construction jobs if there is a controlled rent that destroys the business in the long run, and we can go work in manufacturing industry and retail and other industries. However, these houses that are built, they basically are either sold or they're destroyed. There's not really, you can't really refurbish a lot of houses for any other industries other than the housing market. You see it sometimes with retail spaces, like with malls or with banks, but with housing, they're very elastic, but there's also not really a market for them outside of housing. So if nobody buys the house, they can't really be turned into a school. It's very rare that that happens. So that is why in the short term, that's why rent controls hurt home builders more in the long term. So this is my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on Monday.
So question 6 says that the government decides to pass a law requiring that one-speed bicycles sell for $30, which would be the price ceiling. So A asks, what is the total value of wasted time in the price-controlled market? So on the graph, I drew this red box around the time because the total value of wasted time is the price willing to pay minus the price ceiling times the quantity of bicycles. So this would be 80 minus 30 times 100, which equals 5,000. B asks, what is the value of the sum of lost consumer surplus and lost producer surplus? And this would be the purple triangle on the graph. The lost consumer surplus would be the area in that purple triangle above the red line, and the lost producer surplus would be the area below the line. So I found this to be $2,500 by taking the area of this triangle. So part C asks, why don't we need to know the original market price of simple bicycles? Well, we would need to know it if we were to calculate the individual lost consumer surplus or lost producer surplus. However, to calculate the sum, we only need the difference in price willing to pay and price ceiling, as well as the difference in quantity of bicycles, as shown in the graph. Question 7 tells us what a black market is, and that price-controlled markets tend to create black markets. So it asks, if there was a price ceiling for cancer medication of $50, what is the widest price range within which you can definitely find both a buyer and seller willing to illegally exchange a pill for money? So this would be from $100 to $160 because buyers are willing to pay $160 for a quantity of 100, as shown by the demand curve, and sellers would normally be willing to sell $50 as shown by the supply curve. However, since they've already paid $50 to get the product, that price goes up to $100, so they still have that $50 profit.
Question 8. So after the ban, the price controlled price would be 0, and the dotted line indicates the shortage, and these two triangles indicate the dead weight loss. Both the consumer and the producer surplus would be 0 because there is no trade happening between the bank and the out-of-network ATM users. So as you can see here, there's dead weight loss for the consumers and the producers, which takes up the entire space, and therefore the consumer surplus and producer surplus is 0. Question 9. So the rectangle A represents the value lost from deals that do get made. This is usually due to wasting time or in waiting in lines and looking for other sources. The triangle represents dead weight loss, or the value from which deals that don't get made. Question 10. Harry would enjoy a consumer surplus of 1,700 because the controlled price he's getting at is 300, and the price at which he's willing to pay is 2,000 per month. Therefore, the difference is his consumer surplus. So if he illegally subleases the apartment, he's going to be better off because he's making a $500 profit by subleasing the apartment. Question 11. So in order to find the consumer surplus under price control, we need to first find the average value between the highest and lowest value. This is because of the laws due to random allocation. Basically, the highest value consumers and the lowest value consumers both have a 50% chance of getting the product when the price is controlled. So the average value is $60, and then we can, which is represented by the little green. The consumer surplus is represented by the green rectangle here, and the surplus can be calculated using this formula, which is 50,000. And if under the controlled price and the goods are allocated to highest value users, the consumer surplus would be the entire area between the demand curve and the controlled price, which if you find the area of each of the shapes, you get $95,000. Thank you.